All right, so I will call this meeting to order. Subject section 1983 Wisconsin statutes. Our first item here is to adopt the agenda. Rick, is there any changes?
No changes from administration.
All right, are we gonna do the Pledge of Allegiance or can we forego that?
Mike, I'll move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Do you want to
I'll
strike the
second.
Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
So I'll move to adopt the agenda without the Pledge of Allegiance. Is that what I hear?
Yes, I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item 4 is a recognition of visitors. Before we jump into that, just a few notes here for the conduct of the meeting. All attendees should remain muted to deter background noise. Dr. Spikuza, open the meeting. I will facilitate the discussion among the board members. If you'd like to be recognized as a visitor, choose the raise your hand icon during this part of the meeting, and the host will unmute you after I call your name. And I don't think we're going to have a problem here. If we do, if the guidelines aren't followed and there's a cause of distraction to the meeting's proceedings, then you possibly could be removed from the meeting if it becomes a problem. Again, I don't think we're going to have a problem, but I feel it's just worth calling out. So we'll move into item 4 here, recognition of visitors. Is there anybody on the call that would like to be recognized? I can't see everybody on the call here. So if there's somebody raising their hand, Maria, I don't know if
I
you
can see everybody and nobody's raising their hand.
Nobody's raising their hand. Okay. I'm just giving it a couple seconds here. All right, let's move on. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5, good news around the district. And Rick, do you want to tee this up?
Yes. First, I just wanted to thank everybody. Obviously, the last 48 hours and even last week, there's been a lot of weather disruptions. Hence, in a kind of a abundance of caution, we have agreed to run this meeting virtual. And so Andy Holland, our tech director, and Maria have been instrumental in making sure everything worked and was set up for this meeting and duly posted. We kind of expedite some of the conversation tonight and the good news. I've asked Principal Igo if he would give a secondary update, and then Michael Kosmowski to give an elementary update on good news.
Michael, I'm going to go first, if that's okay. Kyle Igo, middle school principal. First and foremost, from the secondary side of things, we'd like to give a shout out to our music departments for their wonderful concerts that they have been putting on. Mr. Canfield and Mr. V. Goot for their band concerts, Miss Camrath and Miss Kruhulik for their choir concerts. But then real quick, would like to, hopefully everyone got to see the middle school musical, Beauty and the Beast. Again, our cast of 52 middle school members, along with the backstage crew members that were high school members this year, just put on a fantastic middle school musical again for the second year in a row. Just a huge congratulations to everyone that was out in the crew and the cast, and to everyone that had to help out, including the parents, to get everything ready to go for that evening or that weekend. We had an extremely successful show. 2 shows were nearly sold out, and the other one had the auditorium about 3/4 of the way full. So again, congratulations to Miss Matamiro, Miss Krahulik, and the cast of Beauty and the Beast.
All right, at the elementary level, as you can see scrolling on the screen, we have the Beauty and the Beast cast there, but we also had our first annual snowman contest. So the other day when we had our snow day, it was the right type of snow for making snowmen. So we put together a little contest. We had over 109 entries into the contest. 191 students participated. So you can see it was very well received. We did have our winners, the snowman. We asked the community then to weigh in and vote on it, and the snowman falling down had gotten the most votes, followed by the reindeer. Also at the elementary level, our I want to thank the Malone Parent Committee and the parent volunteers for putting on the shopping spree again for our students. Kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. It's an opportunity for them to do some holiday shopping if they so choose. And it was hosted at the intermediate school. And I want to thank Tim and the transportation department for busing the kids over for 3 days to get in a 30-minute shopping spree, and the parent committee for donating a shopping experience for 16 of our families. So just thankful for the parent committee for putting that on. And lastly, at the elementary level, K-5, our winter screening was completed. We used FastBridge screening in both reading and mathematics. From that, we've already been able to, on our collaboration Mondays, look at our data. And we've had a number of students that have shown improvement, and they are exiting our interventions. And we have more kids that will be going in and shuffling what our interventions are. And the nice thing is that we have those groups ready to roll as soon as we get back into the new year, which is about 2 months ahead of where we used to be about 5 years ago when I took over as the teaching and learning director. So just want to thank the staff and our students, obviously, for doing their best, but our staff for embracing FastBridge as much as we have and learning along the way. And look in the new year to have our new intervention groups and continue to fill any of those gaps that have been created over the last 2 years.
Thank you to the admin team. And then I just wanted to, on behalf of the school board and the administration, just wish our community a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas with friends and family. Last reminder is just that we have called a virtual day for tomorrow. Information has already gone out, and we'll be posting that once again on the website and on the news stations later tonight.
All right. I think that's everything, Rick.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate that. We're going to move on to school business. First item is the consent agenda. In the consent, we have the November 16th, 2022 regular board minutes, the board checks and finance, non-licensed personnel, retirement, resignation, employment, change of non-licensed staff. We have 17 board policy updates. The Alice training drills for the Prescott High School, return to learn plan second half of 2022-23 school year, and reapprove the October 19th, 2022 minutes to add the daily rate for long-term subs and retirees who sub to be $160, the language for that. So is there anything that the board would like to pull out of the consent agenda at this time?
Mike, just real quick, the $160, is that a typo or?
Good. Am I on mute here?
No,
We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, so Steve, thank you very much for pulling that out. It was in the business items. It just wasn't memorialized in the minutes. And
Okay,
during
okay.
the audit process, they asked us that we would just be very explicit that the board had moved and changed those rates and to put it into the minutes.
Thank you.
And then I had a quick question, the return to learn plan. I looked at that online and everything. Has anything changed from the beginning of the year with that plan?
In slight ways, for the most part, it serves two purposes. One is to make sure that every 6 months we have to update it in order to be still in contention to receive ESSER dollars. And then it's also to make sure that we have health and welfare and continuity plans should there be an outbreak. We've tweaked certain things, obviously, with regards to just kind of the protocols that we've done over the last 2 years. But basically, there's nothing substantive changed other than, as you see, we're taking advantage of the e-learning tomorrow, but that's a continuity of learning, and it goes both by health and weather.
Thank you.
in the way we sort of pulled that one out, but we'll leave it in for now. Is there anything that the board would officially like to pull out and have a action item on? All right, I'll adopt the consent agenda. Are there any objections? There's no objection, so the consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. Or we're going to move on to item B, consider retirement, resignation, and new hires of licensed staff starting. Doesn't look like there's any retirements here.
That is accurate. We do have 2 resignations. The first is a second grade teacher at Malone Elementary, Lindsay Spielman, and then Helen Stokel, who is at the elementary in special education.
Any questions from the board? Otherwise, we can take a motion.
I'll move to approve all resignations listed above.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that carries. New hires.
Yes, we'd like to welcome to our district Caitlin Benz, who will be the second grade teacher, and then Helena Yanish, our an intellectual disabilities cross-categorical teacher. It's a position that's been open in the middle school for some time, and we're really excited to have her join the district.
Any questions or comments from the board on this one? Those we can take a motion.
I'll move to approve all new hires listed above.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item C, consider the choir only trip.
Choir, yeah. And Josh, feel free to jump in. This is really a leadership opportunity for our students. It's held at Luther College in Iowa. We have gone on this trip previously. We are nominating 7 students of our junior and senior class to participate. The trip is overnight. It's quite an honor where they get an opportunity for both engaging with many different students from across the country, but also getting intense training at Luther College in Iowa. It's spearheaded by Brittany, who is our lead choir director at Prescott High School.
Sorry to interrupt. Josh, you're muted. Who wants to present or show their screen for this?
I don't think I have the ability to show my screen, so that would have to be Dr. Spikuza.
I don't think there's the overnight
Yeah.
trip. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. He should be able to share his screen and show his slides if he wants.
Yeah. I'm sorry, are there slides with this? I
There's,
just had the description of the event down in Iowa.
yep, and that's really all that there is. I think you did a nice job of summarizing what the purpose and the logistics are of the trip.
Okay, I'll just go around the horn here. Tanya, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, Vicky,
No.
Steve?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, Pat?
No questions.
All right, looks good. We'll take a motion here.
I'll move to approve Dorian Choir overnight trip.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. Move to item D, consider bids for the purchase of 1 new yellow bus for next academic year.
Yeah, on an annual basis, Tim Runquist puts out a request for proposals to the regular yellow bus construction or builders. We have received 2 bids. We provided those bids to you. They were basically 109,000 and 113,000. They're slightly up from the previous years. As we know, prices and inflation have gone increased buses for everything. We are proposing, and Tim would have been here to present. However, based on the way that we're doing technology, doesn't have the ability to be present. So I did want to share and just acknowledge all the work that Tim did. We did provide you with a breakout of kind of total cost to own. We are asking to go with the Bluebird bid. It is a gasoline engine through Wisconsin Business Sales. It is about $4,000 more at the time of purchase. But based on the gasoline bus that we have this year, it has run extremely well and has used $1,500 less in fuel compared to the diesel bus that it replaced. Tim believes that this is the way to go. The buses, the gasoline engines are cleaner burning and also don't have some of the additional equipment to make the diesels less of an environmental hazard, but have been continuing to break down within the 2 to 3 years that part, and that has been quite expensive. So all in total, I believe that Tim's done a great job. I would recommend that we go with Wisconsin Sale for the gasoline engine.
Mike looks to be maybe frozen. Mike, can you hear us? He looks to be frozen there. So you might have to pop back on. Do we need to pause or?
Or
Yeah.
Steve, you take over.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can do that.
yeah, I'll have Maria and Mike work on that, and then Steve, if you would just do the round robin, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Tanya, you have any questions?
I do not.
Vicky?
I don't have questions.
I don't have any questions. Thank you to Tim. I appreciate the math. I love it. It makes making these decisions very easy. So thank you. No questions.
Well, I don't have any questions either, so I'll take a motion.
I move to accept the bid from Wisconsin Bus Sales for a 71 passenger gasoline engine bus to purchase one new yellow bus. This will be added to the fleet for the next academic year.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item E, consider acceptance of Clifton Larson Allen audit for the 2021-22 fiscal year.
Yes, so again, great work by the finance department under kind of very difficult times with regards to just revamping, dealing with ESSER funds that are being asked by both following the regular accounting practices to be booked back across years. So they have been working in 3 years, trying to deal with ESSER 1, 2, and 3. We did have 2 findings. One probably does not surprise the board. It's been consistent. They're very hard to get off, and that is with regards to in small districts with limited staff, kind of the typical segregation of duties. That is noted, it is identified. I wanted to also compliment the board in expanding the office that has led, I think, through Sue's leadership, the ability to move in that direction. It just obviously it's 1 year in with that process, and I do believe that she'll get closer to that. She did warn me that it is a hard one to remove, but it will be something that she continues to work on. The second one was identified with regards to hiring of our special education staff. With regards to the state reimburses districts for licensure that's different from regular ed teachers on a proportionate basis. We did have 5 teachers that did not finish or complete their licensure in moving from maybe a regular ed to special ed, or as they were hired, they were put onto an alternate path. That was a citation. It does obviously limit us from, at the time, being able to recoup some of the reimbursement from the state and DPI. The 2 steps that have been put in place, obviously with the hiring of a HR person, Chantel, and working with Sandy Strand, I can tell you that in the previous years, we were always working on the licensure at the end of the year to make sure that people were licensed and had it in place. I can tell you at this time that 100% of the staff that have been hired to date for special education either have their license or are also waiting for DPI and approval. So that is something that they've accelerated and have in place up front.
All right, sorry, I missed a little bit of that. I had a little bit of my own technical difficulty here. I assume you guys can hear me?
Correct.
Yeah, we can hear you. We did item D. We're on item E now. So if you want to take over, Mike, go ahead.
All right, hold on a second here. I gotta go back. So the bids got accepted and we're on the Clifton Larson Allen.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. And I just finished the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Steve, for picking up my slack. All right, board, let's just go around the horn. Steve, did you have any questions about this one?
I don't. Thanks.
Okay, Tanya?
I don't, other than just making a comment that second audit piece really speaks to the shortage in special education teachers and that very specialized license there. So no questions.
All right, Vicky?
No questions, just a comment on I'm glad that we're looking at it now and making sure we're in compliance versus waiting till the end of the year.
All right, Pat?
No, I do have one question. Tanya, you said it speaks to the shortage, and maybe I missed something. Is that the current challenge? I mean, I believe it to be right, but it is shortage of licensed teachers in the profession, correct?
I think the difference, yes, and with special education, for the full reimbursement, because it's a different reimbursement, you need that special ed license, which in the category of where they're working and teaching.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's not just Western Wisconsin, it's the state of Wisconsin. Minnesota is also dealing with it. It was a headline in the Pioneer Press in the Sunday paper, just speaking to that school districts are unable to, the pipeline in providing special education teachers has really dried up. And so districts are really struggling to meet the federal law. It is something that I think our state legislature and DPI will continue to work on, but it is something that all districts are struggling with, not just Prescott.
All right,
Thank you.
okay. All right, thanks. Anybody want to take a motion here or submit a motion?
And
I move to approve Clifton Larson Allen audit for the 2021-22 fiscal year.
And
I'll second that.
Can I
Okay,
ask?
go ahead, Rick, go ahead.
Just I can see just an editorial, just a recommendation from WASP, and your is that you should be moving to accept rather than approve.
I will rework that one then. I move to accept Clifton Larson Allen audit for the 2021-2022 fiscal year.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the language change. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Thank you. Item F, second reading of the updated board policies.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to recommend is that I can share with you is that we did go into detail and provided you with each of these policies. They were read last month. The administration nor has our point person from the either HR or RN had any comments both from internal staff, administration, or the community. Therefore, there's not major changes, it's just compliance, and we would recommend adopting these.
Okay, Pat, any questions or comments on any of these?
No, we read them last month. I'm good. No questions. Thank you.
All right, Vicky,
No questions.
Tanya, any questions or comments?
No.
All right, Steve.
I was going to ask him to be read word for word, but I think I got it. So I think we're good.
All right, well,
I actually did, Steve.
I know. I saw your summary, Pat.
somebody can make a motion here.
I move to approve second reading of updated Neola board policies 31.1.
I'll
I
second.
second.
I got that one. All right, we have a motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? That carries. Okay, we're gonna move on to item G. Consider approval of the administrative recommendations to declare Malone Intermediate School the future building for grades 6 through 8 with the commensurate action of moving grades 4, 5 to middle school facility.
All right, so just wanted to clarify, do I have the right slide deck up and showing? Prescott Middle School, intermediate.
Yes.
School?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So basically, board, and I just wanted to be able to answer many of your questions. We started this not just this year. It really is based on community and long-term planning that began even before my tenure and led to the building of the high school at 1010 Dexter in 2016. At that point, there was a proposal to be able to move our middle school grades into the intermediate school and to move our 2 grades over to the middle school facility. So what you might be asking either as board members or community members is why didn't that move forward in 2016? And the primary reason at that time was that we really didn't have the money to make that move. And so since August, we did have a work session that went into great detail. We also now had the ability for a referendum that supported the district to be able to infuse dollars into the infrastructure that gives some relief to be able to take the practices that the board and myself and the finance department has done to increase the fund balance and also open a Fund 46. Both of those give you the ability to now invest to complete that plan. And so I'm here basically tonight to kind of come back to you and summarize. I was asked to answer very specific questions, and that was, what would the cost be? And so we've been meeting. I tried to reach out to each of you and meet individually to see what, if any, questions you had. I've summarized that information. Currently, we have 3 rooms that are not being used in the intermediate school because they are not functional classrooms. They currently have asbestos and old labs, sinks, gas, and water that is not functional, and they basically have to be abated. Once that happens, we believe that they can come back online for instructional purposes. We have done walkthroughs this week with our Market and Johnson. All of those rooms have access to water and gas. They're not going to be replaced like for like. It's going to be one demonstration unit for our table for our teachers. That will come in about $411,000. That's based on information that was put forward to Market and Johnson for a cost estimate to put in the cabinetry that'll be removed due to the asbestos counters, and to be able to add that back for storage. In addition, the STEM room that has gone through many iterations working with our STEM teachers, teaching and learning, and our principals. We have looked at many different designs, and we broke it into 2 phases. The first phase is very conservative. It would allow us to align and have a coherent program with regards to the computer architectural design computers, and that would be placed in G2, which was the old computer lab for Brian Koenig when it was a high school. Then we would be using the old fax room. We don't currently run a fax program at the middle school. It's one of the largest classrooms, or could be a classroom, but it's no longer a classroom. Once the asbestos in the cabinetry is removed, that would be brought online. The middle school lockers, currently the lockers at the intermediate school are not, and I showed you some pictures of that. They are not large enough even for intermediate. They are old. Some of them, they jam and are out of alignment. We do have a bid through Mike Hoyka for one of the vendors that has worked with us before to be able to put in lockers that are right size for the number of students that would be there, and that's 125. The moving cost is $40,000 that would provide moving both the grades 6, 7, and 8 out of the middle school facility, as well as the intermediate school. It does provide for the storage in semi-trailers. So given the amount of work that's going to be happening inside the building at the intermediate, as well as the potential for the roof, this would give the work crews a straight, efficient line to do the work, allows our teachers only to have to pack up once, and then to be able to expedite that. The STEM room, and that is not being proposed for tonight, but just to kind of be truly transparent as the teaching and learning continues to adapt its programming and looking at future options. There has been discussion about a phase 2, which would include space that is already under the footprint of the intermediate school. It would be the old shop area. The difficulty with that is that we have moved our facility and grounds into that area. So if we went down that direction a little bit later, it would, the domino effect would either be upgrade Young Street, although that wouldn't be preferable, but you could also build a new garage and then update that shop area. That would be another $1 million. Again, it's not essential at this time. It is something that we would want to work with the board and talk about how they may use fund balance and Fund 46. That phase 2 would not in any way, shape, or form be used out of the referendum. That would be something that we were only trying to look at in alignment with the current cost for the move. We do have choir risers on this. Previously, we had talked about having to add on. We do believe and have had the choir teacher over with Mike Hoyka and both Michael Kozmowski and Kyle Igo. We do believe that the behind the cafeteria, removing some of the storage areas and then putting in risers would be sufficient for our middle school choir, much cheaper than adding on to the footprint, and would be $40,000. The middle school art room would require new furniture. The art room over at the middle school is limited, similar to the STEM room over there. And by design, we have to have tables that are very small. What it does interfere with the type of art projects that our teacher is able to run at the middle school. And so we would be looking at providing bigger tables for the type of art and programming that middle school students that would lead into our high school. In addition, the band instruments, the band room is sufficient. It's larger, has higher ceilings. It's a great fit for our middle school band. However, none of the storage units for the instruments that are pretty expensive remain. They were all taken out and basically were useless at the time of the move, and they have been removed. Then finally, there are some things that we've looked at in moving and whether or not some of the type of desks, both for our teachers as well as for large, small, and fluid groupings, the furniture doesn't match the academic models. I can tell you in the 8 years, we haven't put any money into FF&E. In a comparison, I can share with you is that I shared a document with you in the newsletter that Ellsworth this year spent $72,000 just in grades 6 through 12 of their Fund 46 updating furniture. So we do have a proposal here for middle school, the intermediate, moving to the middle school facility that would range 57 to 72,000 and about 160 for middle school. Now, these are estimates. It's based on administration putting things forward and talking with the architects. We have spent some time mostly with our science teachers, but we would still want to engage our staff further in making sure that we have the right type of desk for each subject area as well as for the teacher's desk. But we didn't want to go further unless there was a direction from the board to go in that area. So there would be some what I would say is these are good estimates, but they're not finalized. And then we are recommending that technology kind of match the buildings. We do invest in cameras and indoors and outdoors for kind of making sure that our inside students are safe, as well as for predators outdoors. Many of the cameras are starting to be aged. Again, this isn't specific to the move, but it would require, when we put more students into the intermediate and it's a larger footprint, we would have to invest, we believe, in some upgrades. That is part of the budget process, but it also is something that we would have to, it would go beyond what would be in a typical year. We are working with a technology vendor right now. They did walk through all 3 buildings this week. We'll have some numbers. It wouldn't be anything that would be astronomical that I think would throw off this proposal from what you're seeing. So in grand total, if you take all of that and just kind of going piece by piece about trying to make sure that when we move, it's more than the space, it's what happens inside that space, and making sure that the rooms are well equipped, it matches the academic model, and it allows us to use all the instructional ingredients that we want, with collaboration of staff and students, large, small groups, fluid collaboration time. And that comes to just under $900,000. I think one of the questions one of the board members asked me last month is, how can we move forward if we don't know? I believe this is a very fair and conservative estimate. In addition, the question would be, are we going to run out of money, and does it violate our policy with regards to fund balance? So just to kind of remind people is that we, in 2016, what's different, we had a fund balance that was just over 2 million. Hence, we weren't able to kind of make that move at that time. Strategically, we've been continuing to increase our fund balance for many different reasons. It's improved our lending rates, it's improved our bond rating, and it gives us the opportunity now to complete what I would say is the last chapter of the strategic plan. We are looking at, and Sue and I presented last month, that we believe conservatively that we could spend about 2 million and still fall within the parameters and leave you with $4,800 in the fund balance. That matches the 4 months of salaries and expenditures and would keep our bond rating high. In addition, you do have 1.1 million in Fund 46. So I do believe that the conversation of phase 1 and phase 2 of STEM still would be viable. But again, that's not for tonight. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that what we're looking at is an ask for about $900,000 to be able to execute that move, so that the building and the facilities are ready to meet the needs of our students. And so with that, I hope I've answered many of the questions that you put forward. I'd be happy to answer any further questions or clarifications that the board might need at this time.
All right. Pat, did you want to start us here? Any questions for Rick, or comments in general?
Yeah, so not so much questions, Rick. I appreciate this. I just doing my own math. I guess the way I'm looking at this, right, wrong, or indifferent, is that Rick, I know there's not a budget for the technology, but you know, even if you threw $100,000 at it, you know, we're looking at 334, you know, $500,000 I see as not really associated out of the 900, really isn't associated with the move. It's associated with things that we have to do or we should do, right? Whether that's FF&E or to update the spaces that we have to provide the right educational environment. I think that's important to me. Just because I want to be clear that that's not, we're not making a decision. If the decision is to move forward, that the intermediate now becomes the middle school, not all 900 grand, I think, is associated with that decision. That being said, I also believe that the money that we've been putting away and that you've worked very hard to do, this is exactly what it's for. I do think that phase 2 deserves a different conversation at a different time. I am in support of this. I guess those are my questions and those are my comments.
All right, Tanya, anything that you want to comment on?
No, I don't really have any further questions. I really appreciate seeing it simplified in this version. We've asked for that last board meeting. And this to me is really clear. I see where, kind of a rough estimate of how much it'll cost, where it's expected to come from. It's clear to me that this isn't going to hurt any policies regarding our fund balance. Pat's right. We've been putting money aside since I've been on the board. I don't think we've taken money out of the fund balance. So we've been saving and saving. And these are the reasons that we save for. And I also think that Fund 46, we've been doing the same thing with that. And we're at a pretty good pocket there where, we wouldn't even really need to touch the fund balance if all of those things fit in there. And I know they don't all fit from that, but I think we've done a good job saving. I agree, Pat. Some of that technology stuff, we can begin to have some conversations about, because it probably would align with some of those moves and all that stuff as well. So I appreciate this. Thank you very much. I don't really have any questions though.
Steve, any questions or comments?
Tanya, Pat, good points. I worry a little bit because we've had conversations over the last couple months regarding the track or athletic facilities moving or any number of other physical things we need to do. We've also talked over the last year or two about the state budget for educational funding and what that might look like in the coming years. So I am very cautious about touching the fund balance at all. I don't want to put this district in a spot where we have, that we're not able to maintain what we're doing if the state goes a direction that's not in our favor. So that's a concern I have. I appreciate the comments about the breakdown relative to the move versus the technology. That makes a lot of sense and kind of helps clarify to me, but that's kind of my concern really, is the fund balance piece. Regardless of how well we've done as a district to build that, we need to be cautious, right? I know everybody thinks things are improving in the economy and whatnot from some standpoint, obviously. Inflation's still there. Costs are still going up. This winter is looking like it could be expensive. So, all these things add up to, I like to have a backup plan, having a savings account, so to speak, right? We're in a great position where we don't have to borrow to pay our staff right now. So if we take money out of fund balance and then some other things happen that we weren't expecting, that can get us a little jammed up too. So just kind of cautious about that. What percentage of this can go to Fund 46 of the 900K?
That really goes into details. The reason I put both of those is that it's dependent on kind of that 10-year plan. The referendum dollars are covering a lot that were on that 10-year plan. So it would be basically working with Baird and Sue Gertis to identify what appropriately can get classified to Fund 46. And then if it can't, then it would go to fund balance or vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to understand for us, Rick. And I'll agree with Tanya and Pat too. Really appreciate the work that you put in and the team put in to pull these numbers together. This having that almost $900,000 number at least clarifies where we need to go to get this done. But I'd like to know how much we can put on Fund 46, because in my mind, if we need a couple $100,000 out of fund balance to do this, and we all agree it needs to be done, I'm okay with that. If 800,000 is coming out of fund balance, then I'm not sure I'm supportive. So I don't know if there's any way to get a ballpark.
I think basically it would be some of this work is all going to be contingent also on the referendum dollars that are opened based on bid package 1 and bid package 2, which we'll be talking about in information discussion. But the asbestos removal, the deconstruction of some of the classrooms fall under the referendum. And that was what the referendum was for, which then makes the 411,000, whether or not that can be part of the referendum or not is really contingent on how the other bids come in and what the prioritizations are. This is kind of what Sue and I are kind of charged to do, is to make sure that out of the different funds, how they're delegated and identified, is to make sure that we keep a balanced budget. You have a fund balance policy, and it's really making sure that we manage those three buckets: the referendum dollars, the current budget, and then the fund balance in Fund 46. And they're always revolving targets, because it's based on the plan that Mike Quaka updates with you every year. So we do already have some dollars assigned to the track. It is currently budgeted for about 300,000. We have about 100,000 that could go to it. We have another 50,000. So Mike has 100,000 in his current budget, assuming, as Steve pointed out, is that, you know, things happen. We had a couple boilers go out, and so we're working on that. So if he can stay in budget, there's that, but we already earmarked 50,000 for it. So that's there. And then Fund 46, I believe, is eligible for to be used on the track based on the proposal that Mike had given us last April.
Do you recall what that cost was? I don't remember.
Right now we have it estimated at 300,000.
Okay, thank you.
Talking about if we had to redo the track as
Correct.
is.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve, anything else?
No, thanks.
Vicky?
A couple things. You answered some of the questions I had about the $411,000. So part of that we're hoping is going to be coming out of the referendum dollars, correct?
Correct. For example, this summer, all of the main water lines are being redone in the high school, or I'm sorry, in the intermediate school. The tributaries go into the science rooms. So the goal would be, right, if you designate that it's going to be a middle school and there's going to be science rooms there, we don't need water for 4th and 5th. We would need water for 6, 7, and 8. And so that's why we're asking you to designate, so that the bid package goes out and says the water mains being changed in 2023 with these tributaries to these 3 rooms.
Okay, gotcha. And then I just need to ask, what does FFE stand for?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
Okay.
So it's kind of a term that we use within the budget to identify kind of the desks, the chairs, capital things that we put into the classrooms.
And right now, is that a minimal amount in our budget? It's not
Until
enough to cover.
You broke up
We have that in our budget now, correct?
for FF&E.
Yes.
This is the first year we ever put money in. We
Okay.
have 90,000 that's still available. And so you can see that that would cover for sure what the intermediate school grades 4 and 5 are asking for. And then the 160 would have to come from either Fund 46 or from the fund balance.
Okay. And then the security cameras, you said you've got some of that technology already in the budget, correct?
We do. However, so on a cycle, we try to make sure that when a camera goes down or a server needs to be tweaked, that stores all the memory of all that video. In this case, it would outstrap what we put away each year, because we would be having more kiddos in the intermediate school and a bigger floor plan that we would have to cover. And so we are looking at just trying to maximize coverage that wasn't there when it was a high school. You know, we've really invested in this over the last 6 years. So it would outstrip what is available at this time within his budget. But it is something that I think would be wise for us. I wanted to put it on the radar because I think it's a safety issue and wise for us to do. It's not essential if it's a 4 and 5. I think it becomes essential if it's 6, 8.
And do you know what that amount is that you have for that technology right now?
I do not.
Okay.
We did have a vendor though walk through the buildings with Mike Hoika and Andy on Tuesday. And so they were looking at that and also the PA systems that are part of what's being updated. The PA systems are being updated, part of the referendum. So we were asking them for help with the cameras too.
Okay. And then just to clarify, what would be left in the fund balance would be 4.8 million, correct?
And that's more than, so we're asking for 900,000 for to execute the move and all kind of those, what I would say is ancillary things that kind of overlap with that. There would be more than 4.8 because we were showing that you could spend up to 1.7 million
Okay.
and still have 4.8. Along with Fund 46. And again, Fund 46 is always going to be a moving target on an annual basis now, because you created that trust. The trust is now available for you to use, and it's updated on an annual basis based on priorities that are put forward to the board. And so as priorities, or Mike sometimes has had made summer or emergency fixes, and then that means that we can now replace that or move something up on the list. And so that'll become really important for the board this spring as you start to look at that proposal by Mike to be thinking toward what are some of the next big things that have to get done.
Okay, thank you.
Rick, I think you did a really good job here with the presentation of the information. Just a couple of comments maybe so I don't want to belabor this too much, but back in 2016, when we passed the referendum for the high school, we had roughly about 2 point something million in the general fund at that point, right?
In the fund balance. Yep.
And at that point, that was the time where the facilities committee back in 2015 recommended making the intermediate school, that is now the intermediate school, making that the middle school, but we just did not have the funds to make that happen at that time. I think that's really important to share with people, because I think I get questions on that a lot. It's a question that comes up sometimes. So when we decided to not move the middle school from where it is now, it was because we didn't have the money. And now I look at this screen right here in particular. What we're saying is we can go, if we needed 4 months worth of salaries and expenditures, that roughly equates to about 4.8 million. That's over twice as much as we had saved up back 6 years ago. I know that with inflation and the cost of living increases, all that number is probably a little bit higher, but we're being really conservative here with having 4 months of salaries stocked away in the fund balance, and having 4.8 million that's like worst case scenario. That's what we think we need to survive. Not to say that, we want to take that 1.7 million and spend it all tomorrow, but I think it gives us a kind of a picture of how much we do have of the taxpayers' dollars sitting in bank accounts right now. Not to mention, on top of that, we have 1.1 million saved up in the Fund 46. So, we really have close to 2.8 million dollars that we feel is not critical path dollars at this point. And so if you go back to that previous slide that you were just on, you're asking us for about roughly 900,000. That's, this is all high level estimates, it's ballpark estimates. We're not saying it's exactly a figure that, that's what it's going to be, but it gives us what we need as a ballpark for what we need to spend to make the commitment to make the move. I think I'm comfortable with this. I think it's a great first step to putting us in a better position here to move 6, 7, 8 into the intermediate school and make that the new middle school. Really puts us in a great position long term. If you're looking at it from we have 4 buildings in our portfolio right now, it puts us in a really great position. Now we can support 6, 7, 8 if we have to decommission a building at some point. 6, 7, 8 goes to the intermediate school. We could we could start talking about that at some point if we had to, what that would look like down the road from a long-term perspective. Also, it puts less stress on the current middle school with only 2 grades. I think that's a win-win there. So it gives the community direction where we're headed. It gives you direction that we support the move. If we were to approve this, I think there's a lot of value to making the commitment now and not dragging this out a whole lot further. I understand Steve's points about we got to be really cautious with the economy the way it is, and with where we're at. We're very fiscally strong right now with our fund balance, with our Fund 46 balance. We're in a very strong position. I think I would feel comfortable with putting this type of money into a project when we know it's going to go. We would like to see us go into that direction in the future. Anyways, I think we're all on the same page of that. Getting the middle school moved up to the intermediate school just long term naturally makes sense. We've had many discussions on it. Architects have recommended it, so I'm comfortable with that. And the timing of it, I think, is with Market and Johnson on site getting bids. We can save money by doing some of this now with Market and Johnson on site getting bids and really maximize the dollars that we're spending here in the spring and summer months as we tap into the referendum and start ripping up floors. So I'm for it. I 100% agree with the comments on the separate conversation on the STEM room. That's another big chunk of money that I think, as long as, we can comfortably say STEM is going to thrive as good or better in the intermediate school as it does now in the middle school. And there's not a degradation of programming with the move. I think, that puts my mind at ease a little bit, because then we can have that discussion either next year or the year after, or whenever we feel like we can pull the trigger on really enhancing that STEM programming with the new, remodeling that area at the intermediate school. I think that's, it's wise to kind of push on the brakes a little bit on that one, but let's move forward on the basics here and make the commitment. So those are my comments. Before we move on here, does anybody from the board have any other further comments here? Tanya, I see you unmuted yourself. Did you have anything else?
I did, and I just wanted to, so there's a couple of slides that say that the 1.7 million is the proposed investment. And I just want to be really clear that that's not the proposed investment. That's what we could spend up to. And really the investment that we're proposing is around $900,000. And I also want to just, also, I think Steve made a really good point about using as much as we can from Fund 46 rather than the fund balance, because the fund balance doesn't have to be earmarked for only certain things. What we can take out of Fund 46 makes sense, because we are really in kind of a holding pattern with what the state financial package looks like in the future. So yeah, I'm really comfortable with this, but again, just clarifying that it's not the full 1.7, it is more like a 900,000.
Yeah, and I'm gonna jump in here again. Steve made a really good point about what other things are out there that we got to cover, and the track was a good example of that. We've talked about that. It's a $250,000 ask, and that we know we're going to have to do here very soon. So we want to make sure that we're not overspending, that we can cover those costs that we're going to need to tap into at some point here in the near future. So if there's, I think that was the big one on the list, Rick. If there's anything else, I don't believe we've discussed it at this point anyway. So
I've got one more thing, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Vicki.
So we know how construction has been going. If we have any delays in some of this construction, or I should say reconstruction, this tearing out of asbestos and that sort of stuff in that intermediate school, are we going to see a delay in the moving swapping of the buildings with the classrooms.
So I would propose that we engage in that in the second part, because we did break this into 2 questions. And what this question really is to get, and you kind of heard it informally, is that since 2016, we've increased the fund balance. These are things that we were trying to do so that we could complete this this move and this shift, but we've never taken a formal vote by the board to say we designate the intermediate school. And so what we're asking is that you would allow Mike Koika, myself, and then now for our principals to work with the teachers to say, this is what we believe is the furniture and the fixtures that you need. Now we're going to ask you, does it fit and match kind of the flexible grouping, large groups, small groups that you need? And then we start getting bids. And so that'll allow us to kind of come back and say, how accurate are we? And are we able to get all of this stuff in place and ordered in time for fall? So right now what we're asking is, this allows us to say we can start getting bids, we can start purchasing things, we can start storing, we can start maybe even decommissioning furniture that should never see the light of day again. And then the second part, I think, is a better time to talk about what would be the parameters on a go or no go for fall.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other further comments to make here or questions? All right, we can take a motion if somebody wants to make one here.
I move to approve administration and facility and ground supervisor proposal to designate our current MIS to become the official middle school site, and that the middle school facility will be prepared to house our grades 4 and 5 programming students and staff.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Before we go to roll call, was there any further discussion here? All right, I'm just gonna go around here. Steve,
Nay.
Tanya,
Aye.
Vicky,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. So that motion carries. Thank you. All right, Rick, we can move on to the next phase. The next one here, item H, consider move date for grades 6-8 to move to MIS and grades 4-5 to middle school.
Yeah, and so the reason we did this is, first off, thank you very much. I think this is historic for the district. I really do think it's going to allow you as a district to move to the next plateau. We will continue, Mike and I, to be able now to kind of engage and work with Sue to kind of efficiently match our bids and things like that for the work that's getting done. On Tuesday, we spent 3 hours working with Market Johnson. We have further walked through the intermediate school for the bid package 2 that goes out in January. All of those bids are due back in March and April. And then to Vicky's question, that's when we will, for the first time, know if we have vendors that truly can complete the work that's being asked to be done for the summer. In bid package 2, we are looking at the roofs, we are looking at all of the parking lots, and we are looking at the internal of intermediate school for all of the asbestos removal. And just as an example, this is kind of important to share with you, if I can. Give me a second. Are you seeing a floor plan of the intermediate school?
We are not.
Okay. Give me a second. testing my driving abilities here. Let's see. And
We see it now, Rick.
okay, thank you. All right. So what this represents is the intermediate school. Hopefully, the orientation is the same as what's on my screen. If you go from right to left, the right-hand side are the kind of the main level classrooms and the library. Then you have the cafeteria. And then you have kind of the band room and the shop area. Everything in green is all of the flooring that has asbestos and that is being removed this summer. It starts in March during spring break. They're going to take out the rooms that are kind of on an L-shaped, which is the old fax room. I don't know if my cursor shows up, but it's the old fax room.
Yeah,
It's
it does,
room-
Rick.
Okay, it's room 16, which is the old biology room and currently sits vacant. And then this room, which is the chem lab, that also is sitting vacant. All of those have cabinetry and countertops that have to be removed, and then also the flooring. That is our proposal when that gets stripped out, that goes to that 411. That can be mirrored with the bid package to do two things. One is to make sure that the natural gas and water pipes that are going in there are updated and work in a functional way. And then secondly, the cabinetry that's removed, we would be replacing cabinetry for the storage and for the science. And then the last classroom is up here, which is currently a STEM room for 4th and 5th grade. It's the first typing room, then the electric typing, and then computer room. It has water, but it does not have natural gas. And so that's the one additional add. Those bids will come in April. And if the assumption is, based on the phone calls, both with Markin and Johnson and our walkthrough on Tuesday, with the bids being written by River Valley Architects, they believe that this is in line with being able to be completed in the summer, so that all of the classrooms that we would need would be fully functional and have the design that we believe is essential for the programming. The reason also, when you look at this, why we would recommend, and we have gone back and forth and we've talked with our staff. I can tell you, and Mr. Igo and Michael Kozmowski can chime in, I really think that staff, a preponderance of them are ready to move. And if you look at the intermediate school, understand that in order to remove all the asbestos, all the tile, every single teacher's desk, file cabinet has to be packed up and removed from those rooms. So if we were to keep them there, that means they have to pack all that stuff up, put it all back in there, and then a year from now move. So our recommendation is, if we're going to go to this extent of asking every single teacher to move his or her desk, take down all of their bulletin boards, because you don't want any of the asbestos dust in any of that, to remove all of that, it would be best to get it into semi-trailers, hold it, allows the crews to be unfettered, get the work done. And then we also would have the furniture for 4th and 5th grade all the way over and set up during the summer in the middle school facility, because there's no work going on in the inside. So they would be all set up. We can get that done and be ready in August and give everybody time both to pack, get moved, and get settled at their discretion, whether or not they want to do that throughout the summer or they want to wait till August. So that's some of the thought process. But again, I would say we probably would have to have some parameters to say, once the bids come in, are we on budget? Do we believe we have vendors that complete the work? And then if for some reason something went awry, we would have to be able to hit pause. And so though it is a risk reward at this point, everybody is telling me they believe it can get done, but they won't tell me it's 100%, right? But it's a risk reward. And I think the trade-offs right now would be to continue to move forward for fall 2023. Understanding that some things might happen, but we've dealt with that both with COVID and the weather the last 2 weeks.
All right, Tanya, did you have any questions or comments for Rick here?
No, not specifically about the timelines and stuff. Nope.
Steve, any questions, comments?
No.
Vicky? Vicky, can you hear me? Well, I think she's frozen up there. I'm going to move to Pat.
No questions.
All right. Hey, Vicky, are you with us? You're muted.
I'm back now.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
word.
internet is iffy out here once in a while, and I pretty much lost whatever questions anybody had or was commenting on, but
So far, nobody's had any questions or comments yet.
oh, okay.
So did you have any questions for Rick?
No questions. Well, kind of questions. I guess my big concern is for the staff.
We're losing you again.
Then I'll hopefully she can still hear, and if she can't, I'll repeat. I believe and because I've talked with Vicky, and I really do want to speak to this, is that we know that this is a big undertaking, and so
Lose me again?
we did. My understanding was that you were concerned about how do we make sure that we're taking care of the staff and giving them the time and or reimbursement for that time that they invest in doing this. And
Yes.
I just want to reassure you that that's why it's so important, one, for you to have made that declaration. Now, this allows Mike, myself, and finance to start looking at the end of the year. How are we going to meter out those days with regards to staff? We always have a checkout day. And so the checkout day can be with packing. We'll work with the packing moving company to identify what, for example, teachers have already asked us, can they move their file cabinets full? And as long as, and the packing company has assured us that they can, so they don't have to take out their file cabinets, things like that. But we also will want to make sure that anything that goes above and beyond their 189 days that we will reimburse. And that gives us time to figure out how we can do that creatively.
Okay.
Anything else, Vicky?
Nope.
All right. Yeah, Rick, I think you summed it up pretty well. Whenever you're dealing with a project of this magnitude, there's timelines are always going to be shifting and you know, hopefully things work out. But I mean, I think right on the money with timing is everything here. So the fact that we're able to declare this and allow you guys to kind of move forward and go full speed on it. Now it's just kind of an execution and you know, we'll see how this goes over the next 9 months, I suppose, but completely for it. So all the green rooms have asbestos in them. Rick, did we know that moving in, or was that kind of figured out as Market and Johnson dug in a little deeper here?
I think it was, and I don't believe Mike Hoyka is on. I would say it was a little more expansive than I was aware of. Mike does make the report, but it is based on the testing that has been done to date. I do understand that before the final bid is done, they also are going back, and Pat, you might be aware of this, is that even some of the caulk that is used around windows and things like that can have asbestos. So there will be, when we did the walkthrough on Tuesday, Some concern as well about the blackboards. We have old blackboards that are in there that may have asbestos. So there'll be one more set of testing to kind of give us a true picture of what's going to be removed, and then the bids for that.
Yeah, maybe
Rick,
I'll bore you, Mike, just for a second, but I think Mike has a report. Anything that's kind of available to test that's out in the open. So Mike probably knew about all this flooring. And Rick, you're talking about like some of the caulk and some of the mastic behind chalkboards and blackboards. And you really don't find that till you do kind of destructive testing, what they call. So as you get ready to do a project, you're going to want to keep some contingency for finding things that you think might be there, for whatever that's worth. It's fairly typical.
Yeah, and that's exactly, they talked about that they'll be cutting out some of the blackboards to test, and wanted to make sure we were okay with that. And we don't use the blackboards anymore. So, but that was part of the 3-hour meeting.
Rick, you had some other things listed in the budget at some point. I know we talked about this, like technology at the middle school, where if we decide to kind of wait to do the move, we would probably need to invest in technology down there. We've been pushing that off now for a year or two, right? Where now we can make smarter decisions with that, right?
Correct. So kind of there's a cost aversion in a positive way, is that we will now only have to invest in 10 classrooms with interactive technology at the middle school facility. That's now going to be a 4 and 5. And versus if we stayed, we were going to have to upgrade up to over 20 rooms.
Right. And I think there's some CAD equipment from the high school now that we can take advantage of down in the intermediate school that we wouldn't be able to put down into the middle school if we left STEM there, correct?
That is accurate. So the high school part of our cycle of upgrading, there, believe it or not, the technology is approaching 5 and 6 years old. The CAD lab no longer meets the requirements of the software that they use for our career and tech ed programming, but it does meet the criteria that we use in the middle school. So those computers are going to be repurposed down to now G2 at the new middle school facility here. And it was a computer lab. So all of the wiring, both electricity and wiring, is already there. So it really is plug and play. It would not have been technology or computers that we could have used in the lower level of the middle school facility.
Okay, Rick. And then lastly, I'm going to put you on the spot here maybe a little bit, but out of this whole project, this move, what's going to keep you up at night? What do you think is the biggest hurdle that we got to overcome here to make this happen?
Oh, there's too many things that keep me up at night. But what I guess what I really wanted to share with you is, and it kind of comes back to parameters. I will continue to work with you on, unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit of a waiting game right now until April, to make sure that we have the vendors that can guarantee that when they come in here, they can get the water, gas, so everything that you see is green. All that flooring gets removed and new flooring gets put in. And that's why making this decision allows us to only disrupt the flooring once. I really do think that it's, I'm going to put my faith in Market & Johnson and River Valley. We're going to continue to push the deadlines. And we do have a January 5th meeting. At that time, Market & Johnson will give us an update. They believe that their budget proprietary software is right. Previously was saying that we were still on target to be within our $15 million budget. So I think that as long as we're on target with the budget, we don't have to cut, which we've experienced like we did with the high school. And then it's really just execution. And since it's all indoors, as long as the product's there, you don't have to worry about weather delaying you. So everything, we already know all the programming for summer school. We've already moved that to the high school. There's really no impediment academically or use of the intermediate school to slow down as long as the vendors are here and the products in place.
All right. That's all I had. Does anybody else have anything else before we look for a motion? Okay. We're ready to take a motion here.
I move to approve administration and facility and ground supervisor proposal to move grades levels 6 through 8 to the current intermediate school, and conversely move grade 4 and 5 to the middle school facility for fall 2023 based on work timeline and cost work alignment. We believe this to be the best interest, short and long term for the district.
I second.
All right, we have a motion in a second. I'll do another roll call here. Vicky,
Aye.
Steve,
Nay.
Tanya,
Aye.
Pat.
Aye.
I will be an aye as well, so that motion carries. Thank you. It's good discussion as always, guys, and it's very thoughtful conversations and comments from every board member. I think it's why we do a good job here. So I'm going to move us on to information discussion. Item A is the school report card for 2021 and 22.
Yes, and Michael, are you gonna drive or do you want me to drive?
I'm gonna see if I can drive, so give me a second here.
Okay. And while he's taking over the hosting, he's gonna share his screen. Michael has been working tirelessly to take the information that was released the day before our last monthly meeting. We have, as you know, a state report card that is put out, and this will be also published in the Pierce County Journal per statute. So, Michael?
All right, now are we seeing my screen?
We are.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, so I'll try to keep this as short as possible. I know I can talk for hours on this stuff, but one of the big changes this year over any other year is that the report card calculation itself has not changed from the previous year. Again, the first time in the 8 years that we've had report cards. So I'll just kind of buzz through this this first part, just so people in the audience know. On the teaching and learning website, and there is information on here on how to get to it. I do have videos on this that go much more in depth about the report card and the calculation. And obviously anyone can reach out if they want more information from me directly. But I just want to go through the accountability rating categories, again, are the same. We moved from, we have stars system now, instead of how green is your state. They used to have a colored system. So now it's a number of stars. You can see over on the right-hand side here that this is actually the score out of 100 possible points. It's not a percentile or a percentage that you have scored. It's just the number of points you've scored from these different categories on the report card. Again, there's variable weighting within the report card itself. So achievement and growth are both weighted based on the year. So the last 3 years of data. So it would have been the 2021, 2022 school year is the most recent year of data. And then 2019, 2020, and then we had the COVID year that we don't have data for, and then the year previous to that. So they get calculated. The more recent years go more weighting, and then also within those categories, especially like on the achievement, the students that exceeded expectations versus those that didn't meet expectations, they also are calculated on that rating system as well. And then also the on-track graduation category is a little bit different for every grade level. We don't graduate kids in third grade or at the elementary level. So on-track graduation at the elementary includes third grade reading achievement, because that's one of the milestones that we have in education for predicted success in down the road. Also, 8th grade will have mathematics, and only the high school will have that graduation rate. And we have both 4-year and 6-year graduation rates, because we know that some of our special education students stick around with us for a couple more years as we work on programming. All of our calculations are based on our free and reduced lunch numbers in terms of our areas of achievement and our area of growth. And our free and reduced lunch numbers have been relatively flat over the last couple of years. slight dip in elementary from the year previous. And again, that's why each one of our schools are calculated just a little bit different on achievement and growth. And all districts are calculated slightly different as well. And that's why we have that, do you meet the expectations that were placed on your district? Those are mostly determined by your demographics. So the 4 big categories that we have, the first area is that priority area of achievement. And the 2 areas that we look at are English language arts and mathematics. This is our district data. So you can see the points that we scored in ELA versus the state average of K-12 districts. So each of our school report cards are compared to other elementary schools or middle schools. Some districts in Wisconsin are only K-8 districts, so their average is not put into this. It's only K-12. And then you can see in mathematics, the points that we scored versus the state average. So as a district, you can see we're quite a bit higher than our state average there. And we know that because of our data that I shared out last month. Our calculations, again, as I was talking, if you were advanced, you get 1.5 points for every student that we have that's advanced. Proficient count is a 1.0 multiplier, and then 0.05, and then we don't get any points for anyone who is below basic. And then again, the newer the year, the more the multiplier is as well. And then as a district, we're looking at forward the ACT Aspire, and DLM. So all of that kind of gets mashed together for our district report card. At the elementary level, it's forward exam and DLM, as well as the middle school, and then the high school is where that ACT comes into play. Priority area 2 is this value added growth. And there's 2 examples of student A and student B on the left here. And what we're doing is we're looking at where did the students score last year? What was their starting score? So maybe a 5th grader with a score of 300 in ELA. They're going to look at all 5th graders that started at 300. And then they're going to figure out what is the average of all of those students. And that will be sort of the benchmark they're going to compare you to. And then are you above that benchmark? So you grew more than the average student that started at that score, or are you below that benchmark and you have a slower growth rate than students that started at that score? So it's a really nice kind of comparison of apples to apples, because again, we're looking at all of the kids in that grade level with that same starting score. So that's how that is used. And in the report card, and I know the board, you got the full packet of 12-page report. What the state does in terms of growth, and again, we're going to look at ELA growth and mathematic growth, is it's on a scale of 0 to 6 points. And by definition, they are going to set that average score to the 3.0. So on here, you can see a lot of ours are blue and to the right. So we're closer to the 6. That means we outperform the average in all these different categories in ELA. So you can see in every single demographic category of ELA, our economically disadvantaged students, our students with disabilities, compared to all of those other categories in ELA as a district, we are above where the predictor is for us. We're above average. And if you look over here at the mathematics, you can see in all but 2 categories, we are above that 3.0. And again, the further you get away from 3.0, the better you did. So our students, you can see our students that were proficient in mathematics last year really outperformed what the expectation or prediction was for them. But then the students that were not proficient, you can see are right at just below being proficient, along with our students with disabilities meeting that same growth target that they have for us. So that's really good news for us. But again, those are areas that we need to look at and focus on as well. So again, you can see in ELA, we're at 81.2, where the state average, again, is set to 66. And then we're 73.6 in mathematics for growth. Priority area 3 is our target growth. So this is really looking at that bottom 25 percentile of students that achieved in ELA in mathematics. It's not necessarily always the same students. We do know who these students are. We are provided a list. Most of them are special education students. Almost all of them fall into this category, especially if they take the DLM. And then also just our lower achieving regular education students. And basically they get their own separate little report card here. So we have their achievement category. They have a growth category as well. and then their absenteeism and graduation. And some of this information you see I started is because it actually comes from the previous school year, because our attendance doesn't get uploaded until into the fall. So you can see some of this isn't the exact same school year of data as well. These two categories are not, but these two are. And again, we're looking at those target groups versus the non-target group. And you expect the non-target group to grow higher than our lowest performing kids. But again, it's another area where we look at, okay, so here is our gap in ELA in growth, and here's our gap in mathematics in growth. So again, something that we really look at is, are those gaps there, and who are those specific students? And we'll notice that a lot of those students, we'll start our interventions earlier in the school year because we know who those students are. So we can start trying to fill those gaps right away in the fall. And I know at the intermediate school, it was day 6 of school, we already had interventions going. So really trying to get to those needs of our students earlier in the school year. And then our last category is that priority area 4 of on track to graduation. Again, it looks as, again, this is our district score out of 100. So you can see we're almost at 90 points here. But it looks at chronic absenteeism, our graduation rate, and then 3rd grade and 8th grade mathematics. All of those get combined for our report card as a district. Again, not all the same categories when we look at the middle school and the elementary, because again, graduation would not be part of it. So all of those, again, highly based on our free and reduced lunch numbers, create our different categories and our report card. And again, just pointing out that it's not always from the same year. Some things are laggard by a year or even multi-years. And then the last category, and you'll see this on the reports, is this post-secondary preparation. And it's just informational. And it talks about, as a state, advanced courses. About 20% of students in the state take an advanced course. At Prescott, it's a little bit higher than that. Dual enrollment, so they're enrolled both in a high school course and a college course at the same time. Across the state, what's being reported is about 19%, and in Prescott, about 53% of our kids are enrolled in a dual enrollment. So this just really speaks to our programming and where we are compared to the other opportunities we have in the state. Again, it is laggard by a year. And again, it's just informational. And then the other places that they're looking at is art and design, dance, music, theater. It makes sense that we do not have a theater program, so we don't have any students enrolled in theater courses. And the same thing for dance. And again, this is not extracurricular. This is within this in the school day. So we can just kind of look at our programming and how are we providing opportunities, or more or less opportunities than others are. And you can see compared to the state average, we're doing pretty well. Not always the case when we look at some of our larger neighboring districts, but again, overall, I think we're doing a really nice job in increasing, though, especially that dual enrollment and how many kids we have that are taking courses here, getting those college credits, and then again, having that deferred cost that parents don't need to incur. So couple big things. And again, we shared this information last week, but Andrea Herzon, a little shout out to her for putting these slides together for us. And you'll see these if you've been paying attention during a timeout at some of our home events. Andrew Caudill has had this up on our screens as well, and just touting some of our academic accomplishments. And again, as the Middle Board Conference of Schools, #1 in achievement and #1 in student growth. That's really, a lot of times it's one or the other, and you focus on one and you slide a little bit in the other, and that's not what we're seeing in Prescott. So kudos to our students and kudos to our staff for getting our students prepared for that. And then as we break down at the different grade levels, just where are we, again, compared to the middle border, I think we have a lot to celebrate here academically as well. And I know in education, we talk about the only way we're going to change the way people talk about education is we got to change the way we talk about it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about our accomplishments and the great things that are happening in Prescott schools. Overall, you can see that for the 4 different report cards that we have as a district, we earned 77 points and we exceed expectations. The high school is meeting our expectations. They're just out of that exceeds expectations category. The middle school has slid up into that exceeds expectations, largely due to growth. And you can see at the elementary and intermediate, we significantly exceed expectations with our highest score out of 100 that we've had to date, just over 90 points there. Just a few more slides. When we look at, one thing that the report card does is it does lay out our percentile rank compared to other schools in the state of Wisconsin. So if we were to take all the districts in the state of Wisconsin and line them up from 0 to 100, we are in the top 11%. We are, 11 from the front of the line, sort of say. So in terms of academics, very high. That is higher than what we were last year. It was top 15% last year. And then in growth, we're in the top 9% as a district in growth as well. And again, it's very difficult to have both the high achievement and the high growth, but I think that speaks a little bit to the board and some of the adjustments you have made as well in hiring more interventionists over the last couple of years and allowing us to expand, especially at the middle school and high school level. And again, that student growth and us trying to make sure that we don't have that slide that we oftentimes hear about in the national news. And we're not seeing that in Prescott. One thing I put together here is all those percentile ranks now. So by the district and then the 4 categories that we just talked about, where do we rank as a district? Again, achievement and growth, again, that lowest 25 percentile of kids, then on track to graduation. So you can really look at a good cross section there of where are we compared to everyone else. And then you'll see off to the side, a little positive or negative number. And what that represents is compared to last year's percentile rank. So last year, our percentile ranks were, as you can see, across the board, we have all positives. So that means in terms of growth and achievement as a district, we have increased over last year's above and beyond. Again, this is, for me, I think it's an objective information from an outside organization. It's really positive news across the board. We've oftentimes talked about being the best at getting better and what does that mean? And we're starting to see some of those results of that. And again, having such high achievement levels across the board, and then those high growths. And, they're different in different areas, and we can see the high school's growth is not as high as some of our others. But we did grow over last year. And again, that's one of the areas that we're focusing on this year. We have especially in mathematics, we have an intern. We also have Lindsay Wall working up at the high school part of the day. So those are some areas that we're attacking to grow even more. So Prescott School District, small size, big in achievement. I think that speaks volumes for what we're doing here and the programs we're putting together. Finally, if people want more information, this is up on the screen. So if you've got your phone at home and you want to scan the bit.ly there, otherwise it's at our teaching and learning website. And I will open it up to any questions that the board may have.
Thanks, Michael. Tanya, did you have any questions or comments here for Michael?
Well, Michael, I really appreciate all this. This is very much some of the information you shared. I think it was last month and maybe it was the month before at a board meeting. And I know it's really formulated now into the format of the report card, the state report card. So none of this really is a surprise because you did such a great job already sharing it. But it is really great to see this slide in particular, the percentile ranks in the state. I was really happy that you pointed out that the high school, that growth, that 65.6, because that was an area during work sessions that we targeted to add staff to and identified as a need before the school year even started as an area that we could grow, specifically in the area of math. So I'm really impressed with seeing these numbers. It is really, I know it takes multiple years of working through something and doing those interventions before we really get to the point that we can see those. And we're able to see all that hard work from you, our leadership, our teachers right now. And I just completed a survey, I don't know, just a couple of days ago, talking about like the dip in growth in districts across like the nation, the state. And it's just really great to see that we're one of those rare schools that didn't have a dip through COVID and all that. And that goes to that programming as well. So no real questions here. Michael, you always have new graphics for us too. I don't know how you keep doing it, but every time you show us this, there's some other kind of cool way to look at it. And I do really appreciate it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve, any questions or comments?
Michael, I'll just echo what Tanya just said. I can't say it any better. really nice job. And, I'm somewhat critical of some of these rankings and whatnot, but just great job for the whole district, the staff, the administration, everybody. Just great job. Thank you.
Thanks.
Vicky.
Yeah, I feel the same as Tanya and Steve. I mean, staff and students, everybody worked really hard the last few years and through really difficult times. And this just proves that our staff is dedicated, and so are our students. So nice to see.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Vicky. I just want to add on to that. You talk about our students being dedicated. We talk about student engagement a lot at administrative level, and we talk about, are we meeting the needs of the whole child? And looking at you're not going to have high achievement and high growth if kids aren't being supported, not only in academics, but social emotional growth, nutrition, and transportation, and feeling safe coming to school and being able to explore and learn. And I think this is just a testament to our system as a whole, not just achievement.
All right, Pat, anything?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat. I agree with what everybody says. I want to thank you to the administration, the staff, the teachers, Rick, Michael. We probably get as a board, and Michael, you guys always do a great job of thanking the board, but it makes it really easy when you got good data, and it supports what you guys as an administration and staff recommend. I mean, it makes it really easy when we look at the good stuff, the bad stuff, and it makes it simple. So I know data doesn't tell the whole story, but thank you. This is great, and a great achievement for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't say any better than what you guys say here. I mean, the way you present information to the board, especially when there's decisions to be made about hiring interventionists and the early release, the types of things that are making a difference in the classrooms, and they're showing up here in the data. I think you guys do an excellent job preparing and getting it ready for us to look at and review and make intelligent, informed decisions. So great work as always. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else here, Rick, or should we move on? We're going to move on. And you're on mute. I'm going to move us on to item B, academic calendar.
All right, I'm up again. So academic calendars, the process that we went through this year, very similar to what we've done in years past. So we start by reviewing every about 5 years. We do an input survey to staff about, their rankings of what priorities do they have. And I know the board has this, it's a skip slide in here. But that Wednesday before Thanksgiving is highly sought after. Some 95% of the staff would love this, they want that Wednesday off. Finishing the school year early, I think that's a priority, not only for staff, but I think for students as well, and for families. So they can have those vacations, especially the last couple of years, we've been able to put a week break in between the end of the school year and the beginning of summer school. And I know that's very appreciated by the summer school staff and by the families, because they can plan around that. We also review the calendar with our partners in St. Joseph's Parochial. Every year I go through the calendar with Chris McGee and what are their priorities and what are the things that they're looking for. And, sometimes they have some special meetings that they need to get to, and they would appreciate certain days off. So we do that as well. And then obviously we're going to build a calendar that meets our DPI requirements, supports our programming, the academic vision that we're going for, and then again meets those partners. So draft calendar is made with a couple different options, and then that's shared out with the PLC, and the PLC shares that out with really every teacher in the organization, and they provide feedback on how can those be improved. And there are always a lot of competing things, and anyone who's ever built a calendar knows you can pick up one day and you can move it somewhere else, but that then creates domino effects down the road. So here today, just for information discussion, see what questions you may have or directions you may want to explore more. And then hopefully in January, we can have a business item on this. So just a couple of the things that came out of the input survey that we sent out to the staff and they asked about was ramp up days in the calendar. So for the last 2 years now, we've done 2 ramp up days to school. They're right at the very beginning of the school year. For us, the school year really has begun. Transportation, food service, everything is a go on those first 2 days. It's really our way to introduce the kids back into the school year. They are counted as summer school, and we know that that's a priority for us and for the board, because we know that that also has a financial impact for us. Are they required? No, DPI does not require them. Number of neighboring districts actually have expanded ramp up to school days than what we do. We do the 2. They are counted into the teacher contract. And yeah, they could be modified or changed, but again, for summer school, it really comes down to that enrollment, and we really want all of our kids there, as many as we can have as possible. Other unique things about this calendar is, next year is a leap year, so there's an extra day in February. The way the calendar lands, there's that Friday before Christmas, and that's kind of the 2 options that were looked at. And speaking with Chantel and HR, there are 12-year or 12-month employees. That is a contract issued due to the observance of Christmas Eve, which is really on that Friday. Also, it does align to St. Joe's. I know when I talked with Chris McGee, he was very favorable of having that day off, or that's what they would prefer. And Chris knows that they can take days on and off that they want. And he said if the public school, was to have school on that day, they probably would take that as a day off anyway, just because it aligns to their families and travel and things like that. Spring break, I know, is always a hot button issue because around here, no district really aligns. Hudson usually is a little different than River Falls, which is different than Ellsworth, is different than us. ACT used to have a big impact on that. It doesn't as much anymore now that we've moved to doing ACT online. But the bigger one for us is, again, the way the calendar works out is that if we can align it with the holiday of Easter, that buys us 1 day in the calendar to put somewhere else. I know a lot of people like to have it much earlier in March, but that's the way the calendar kind of works out this year, depending on what you do with the Christmas holiday and things like that. And then the other big one, and one that I think is an admin team we're not fully have feathered out yet, is in-service week, and that's sort of that month of August. And how are we spending that? Typically, in-service week has been 4 days in a row. You'll see on the proposed calendar here, it's 3 days, 1 week, and 1 day just before that return to learn. And that came directly out of that feedback that we got from our PLCs and PLC leaders. Also, the data can we move that later in the month and have it back-to-back days and things like that? Sometimes we can meet those needs, but really it's the ability for us to react to what our assessment data is telling us and then plan our in-service around that. That's important for us too. So again, you have a lot of competing things going at one calendar. So you got to try to meet the most needs here. So again, just a couple of unique things. And I talked about most of these. We're still recommending the 2 days prior to stay as those return to learn days. Again, Christmas Day, that Friday will have an impact. HR is recommending that would be observed the Friday, the 22nd. January 1st is a Monday, so that would mean school can start back on that January 2nd. The way that the calendar is, winter break next year would be a shorter break than most years. But again, then that means the next couple of years are going to be getting longer breaks. And then Easter Sunday is the end of March, so potential of moving that spring break down. We have Memorial Day, and then again, that leap year. So taking that all into consideration, this kind of is the calendar that is being put in front of you. And this is the one I'd want you to pick apart. I know you did get a Google sheet that had a couple different tabs at the bottom there. You can see the feedback that was provided as well. So you can see in-service week is on this one is broken up a little bit. It's not all in 1 week. It's broken into the 2. We have the 2 return to learn days, and our first official day would be Friday, September 1st. And that's the first official day that we can have according to DPI. And it's very similar to this year's calendar. We have a PD day in September, a day off in October. That was ranked number 3 is that to have a day off after the 2 late nights that the elementary has for parent teacher conferences during this week. We have 2 late nights. I know the high school, middle school, they do 1 night, but again, that's a highly sought after break because it's very long otherwise. PD day in early November, kind of get us set up that aligns to the end of the quarter at the middle school, and the middle school is still on quarters and semesters. The other buildings are on trimesters. So we can't always align to those. See the Wednesday off before Thanksgiving here. This calendar has that Friday off just before December, again, aligning to what HR was recommending there. MLK Day would be a PD day. The one day that we turned on this year is we turned it off. It's a day off for both students and staff. This is sort of the one day that we kind of have that we could play around with. And that's President's Day, and it aligns to President's Day because we know a number of employers have off on that day. So daycare would not be as much of an issue for families. But otherwise, this from winter break all the way to wherever spring break is, we're talking at, in some cases here, this would be 13 straight weeks, full weeks of school. So to give staff a breather in there, that's why that day's there, but that is something that we could explore to move around. April also is a long month with no breaks, but we have an early break in May here. And again, that day could be moved a little bit. In this calendar, we have Memorial. We also have last school day would be on May 30th. And that Friday would be the last in-service day, which allows for that week-long spring break before what would probably be the proposed summer school. Other highlights, we have the same day count, 171 student days in this calendar, 188 teacher days on their contract, and the same instructional time. And I know instructional time this year, particular with the weather, we're looking at that. We have virtual learning day. The secondary does have just over 2 days above and beyond, not counting those return to learn days. And then the elementary, I believe, is at 6 or 7 days. Again, they're on that one tab, there is a time study and you can see what those numbers are. I just don't have that up right now. So that is kind of where we are with the calendar. Just looking for feedback from the board of things that you would like to be explored or ways to improve upon this to bring back a recommendation for next month.
All right. Hey, Vicky, did you have any questions for, can you keep that up too, Michael, just so we can keep looking
Sure.
at it while we go around the horn here?
Yep.
Vicky, do you want any comments or questions here for Michael?
No, I don't think I have any questions.
All right.
Not at this time.
Pat?
No, and I don't think anybody really cares what I want. I don't think it really matters anyway. So, but Michael, I think you said, my only comment, April, not much going on there for a break in April, but spring break is later than, if I was than I would like, but those are my only comments. So.
Yep.
Tanya?
Yeah, no, I think it really matters what makes the most sense for the buildings and the schools. I read through the PLC comments. People did appreciate the earlier spring break, but I see that kind of going to that later. And I think, it's just splitting up those late winter months. But yeah, really, I think you guys always do a good job of really balancing input and feedback with some of our district needs. So thank you.
Steve?
No comments, thanks.
Why did we choose to have a spring break on the last week of March? Typically, we try to get that moved up a week or two, don't we?
Yeah, typically we do. It aligns with Good Friday would be on the 29th. So that buys us a day in the calendar, and that day actually is this day for the leap year that got put in. So if we move it off of this week, and we could, it's just either we're going to have to go a week later and have our staff come back and not have a full week off before the staff that do summer school, or we would have to look at turning another day on. And the potential would be this February the 19th. And then you could potentially slide this up higher into the month of March. So,
Okay, I just want to understand this. So if you slid that up a week or two,
yep.
why does it add, because of Good Friday? Is that why?
Yeah, I think we would always prioritize. I think it's a high
Okay.
priority for the
That
community.
makes
to
sense.
have Good
We
Friday
would
off.
probably have to take off that Good Friday as well. So you're saying we'd have to move probably the 19th, take that off and put it on Good Friday, and that would be the other option to keep everything else aligned with the end date, the start and end dates.
Right, that
Right.
would be, that would be the sort of the payoff, yep, of how would you balance that out?
Yeah, and I mean, was there feedback from the staff on that? I'm just curious.
There was in the feedback, it's 50-50 of, do we leave it where it is or do we move it up earlier? I think most people would like to see it earlier, but also, like when I talked to the PLC leaders yesterday, if you count up the number of full weeks for staff, because like the 15th of January is a staff day, they are working on that day. We have, at least 8 to 9 solid weeks, even if we slide this up in the middle of winter of go, go, go. And I think the staff, when they heard it in that terms, they're like, okay, that makes a little more sense of why we might leave it here and not give this day up. But
Yeah,
again,
I mean,
it's
that was
someone,
my only real comment
yep,
on that. And I know I don't want to make the decision about the school board here. So if this is the direction the administration wants to go with it, I support it. I just wanted to throw that out there. One other thing, just to call out, I know we didn't talk about it, but I think it's just worth calling out. Mondays, we're going to continue on with early release Mondays into this calendar. Is that correct?
yeah, that's the recommendation, that would become our standard practice. Again, I know sometimes it's hard to quantify exactly the benefit of that, but I think the report card speaks for itself. There is a tab on your information of feedback from the PLC leaders of sort of how are those Mondays being used? How do they benefit them? And then how does it benefit students? So I just got that information added this afternoon, so I'm not sure many of you read through it, but that information is there too. That is one thing I did talk with Chris McGee about, the partnership with the transportation and things like that. And he felt that that's moving very smoothly. And Collaboration Monday is something that he actually is going to explore a little bit more with his staff. And he wasn't committing to it, but he also said it's probably something that they should take a little bit more of a look at because of the positive things that they are hearing are going on in the district due to having that Collaboration Monday. And I think he would like to partner with us a little bit more on some professional development of software and programs that we both provide to students, and we could provide some of that professional development or learn together. So it's again, a way that we may partner in the future.
Yeah, and I bring it up because I'm 100% on board with the continuation of the early release Mondays. We're seeing very positive results from what we did through last year when we turned that on, and it's going well this year. So completely in support of that. I just wanted to bring it up and make sure that it got called out. I think that's my questions there. So anybody else have anything before we move on? So I don't know if you're looking for anything from us, Michael. I think you got it. I mean, it's kind of your guys' call on how you want to structure spring break, and what you think the majority or whatever you think works best for that spring break week, I guess, is the only thing that really came up.
Yeah, and I think what this allows us to do now is, now that everything's kind of fallen together, Michael has done a great job in just using our teacher leadership. We'll get this out to our staff. We'll continue to touch base with them, finalize August, and I think we'll have a solid calendar that can be approved in January.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Michael. We're gonna move on. Item C is discuss graduation credits based on move to the 3-term by 6 period day.
I'm going to have Mr. Figge assist me in this presentation. This is a follow-up with regards to his presentation last month when we kind of talked about moving to a trimester with 6 periods. And obviously then having students take more classes, we have to redesign the credits that are necessary to graduate. So Mr. Figge, are you ready?
Absolutely.
And are you seeing the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So I'm actually going to have you go to the second slide. So when we last spoke, you guys had graciously granted the high school the ability to move to a 3x6 schedule. With that comes a modification need in credits. So for the first time, and I did some simple math on this slide for everybody, students will take 3 trimesters of 6 credits. So they'll earn 18 yearly credits, which gives them the total ability to earn 72 credits over the course of their high school career. Under the 3x5, our current credit load is 60 credits. And so our current grad requirement is 52 credits, which I always talk about credit earning potential is 87% of a student's schedule. Or if you just want to think about it as classes they need to pass all but 8 of the classes that they can take over the course of their high school career. What we're recommending is that we maintain the number of classes that students need to pass. If they have the ability to take 72 credits total, that they have to pass all but at least 8 of them. The credit earning potential does change a little bit. It ramps up to 89% of the credits earned that they would need to take. But that's minimal. We're talking about 1 credit in there. And again, they still have to pass all but 8 of their classes. So there's equity created in between what we currently have, what we had under semesters, and what we would be looking to have under that 3x6 schedule. One of the key things is I worked with our PLC leaders. I worked with Mr. Montreal, Mr. Kosmalski, and we reviewed kind of not only what are the total amount of credits necessary, but also what do we want, how do we want to create equity for each class, knowing that our juniors this year, we can't all of a sudden expect them to have 64 credits next year. It wouldn't be feasible in one sense, and certainly we want some fairness. So on this chart, what you're going to see up at the top are from left to right, the number of total credits we would ask each of our classes to have to be eligible to graduate. And by and large, what you're going to see is we stick right in that 87.5% to 89% range of credit earning potential. There's a little variability. You can see that for juniors next year, we're going to ask them to have 3 additional credits. So it goes from 52 credits this year to 55, because they'll have the ability to take 3 more credits next year with the addition of 3 more sections. The same would hold true for the current sophomores. They would, over the next 2 years, be expected to earn 3 more credits each year. And again, that's kind of maintaining that credit earning percentage. The one difference would be for our current freshmen. We're going to ask them to earn 4 more credits over the course of that amount of time. It maintains that credit earning potential of about 88 or 89%. And the reason that that one is a little bit different is because if you look down the page or down that column for math, science, English, social studies, and some of the other requirements, we are able to, for our freshmen, ramp up math, science, English, and social studies requirements based on some of those courses moving from 2 trimesters to 3 trimesters, and the fact that our current freshmen have 3 years in the high school left to do a lot of credit earning. And then looking at our current 8th graders who will have a full 4 years under that 3x6 system, they would ultimately adopt what we would recommend all students after that to have, which is 64 credits total. You're going to see 3 of our 4 core areas are required to earn 8 credits, which is just the state's equivalent of 3 full years of those courses. English, we have actually accelerated the rigor by 1 credit. It came as a recommendation based on what we were seeing with some of our scores. It came as a recommendation from our English department that they would like to see more students engaged. That is the one core area that the state recommends that you have 4 full years of instruction. And so 11 credits would help us satisfy that more than what we have now. And then moving down the list, you're going to see that physical education and health are state requirements still. Personal finance is one of our local requirements, but it's also state recommended. And then we did add in something that we're seeing a lot of local districts in the Middle Border Conference and across the river add, which is a fine arts credit. It came from a lot of feedback that we received not only from our music and art PLC, but also from some of the parent feedback that we got, wanting us to be able to emphasize the ability for students to take a fine art or a music course, but also showing that we're emphasizing the benefits of some of those types of courses too. We did do an audit, Mr. Montreal, Mr. Kozmowski, myself, our counseling team, to put it into perspective, this year's seniors who have not had a fine arts requirement, all but 5 of the 104 students have already taken a fine arts credit. So it's not something that's necessarily going to add an extra requirement or burden on student, but we felt like it was a really good addition to emphasize what we value, or that fine arts is one of the things we value in a well-rounded student. As Mr. Kozmowski talked about the whole child earlier. And then electives stay at 23 all the way across. What you would see if you reviewed some of the local districts around here, both bigger districts like River Falls, Hudson, Hastings, South Washington County, and then obviously our middle border contemporaries, is that this is on par with a majority of them, and has a little bit more rigor than some of them, but brings us on par again for those core areas to make sure that we're competitive with our peers and the people that, as you look at our report card data and our academic data, that we're trying to stay really competitive with. Any questions?
Steve, do you got any questions for Josh on this?
I don't. Thank you for the clarification though.
Okay, Tanya?
Josh, I had a couple questions just about, it was the math, science, English, social studies, but the cores basically. And so students are expected to earn in this new system 8 credits, which you said is equivalent to the state's what they consider a full year, but really, or 3 full years, but really they could earn 9 credits. So tell me the difference with that being 3 full years.
Yep, that's a great point. So if we look at math, the way each core department structured their courses is they had to balance out having those foundational courses that they wanted to expand to a full year, or those 3 trimesters, but also being really cognizant of what our staffing allows us to do. I think every department would love to have turned every course into a 3 trimester course. Not only would that have constrained student schedules, we just simply don't have the staffing to allow that. So for math, Algebra 1 is 3 credits, geometry is 3 credits, but by the time you get to your junior year, you have different pathways. So you could take Algebra 2, which would be 3 credits. That would earn you 9 credits total, and would get you above and beyond that 8 credits, and that would be your 3 years. But we also see a number of students who are taking college tech math. They're not looking at that 4-year pathway. They're looking at a community college or a tech school pathway, and that's only going to remain 2 credits. And so what we didn't want to do is artificially have those students need to take an additional math course when we don't offer any single trimester math courses. So really what that would have done is ask them to take 10 credits to satisfy a 9 credit requirement. So we were just trying to be really cognizant of some of those pathways. A majority of our kids who are taking Algebra 2 are going to continue on with pre-calculus or AP Calc, AP Stats. And what you would see, the same is true with social studies and science as well. So physical science will be 3 credits, biology is 2 credits, earning them 5, and then they would have to take chem for 3 or physics for 3, but they could also take some of our electives like human anatomy and phys for 2, environmental science for 1. So we didn't want to, the 8 credits fit to be 3 years with what we were offering for courses. 9 makes
Gotcha.
more sense
Yeah.
at full years, but not for how our courses are lengthed out.
Thank you. That helps me understand a lot because I didn't realize not all of them were going to be full year. So thank you for that clarity. And then if you did take extra math credits, so let's say you took 3 full years, like however you group those together, then they fall under elective credits. Is that right?
Yep, they
So-
can.
Yeah. Okay. Like if you get beyond that 8.
Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. And then just also comment that class of 2027, that's going to be our current 8th graders. So the first group of students that will have all 4 years with this new trimester system.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Vicky?
Nope, I think Josh did a really wonderful job and yeah, looks good.
Thank you.
Pat?
No questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Josh, this is great. I assume this is all you're getting ready for the big push for registration now, and that's coming along pretty well.
It's coming along really well. Again, I know we talk about how much we appreciate our staff. In between Thanksgiving and obviously this holiday break is a really crazy time with the switcher trimesters and getting kids as much content and learning as they can before the break. But behind the scenes, our PLC leaders have been working really hard with me. And then each department has been doing a lot to try and add in new electives next year, help modify our course book, try and get a lot of these things ready for kids to have a lot of new offerings too, to keep things kind of on the cutting edge and really relevant to them and exciting and engaging.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. We're gonna move on. Item D, we are on update on referendum projects, timelines, and cost alignments. Rick, you've been pretty quiet this last hour. You ready?
I am. Hopefully. Yep, I just need to get the slide over. Hold on here. There we go. Almost there.
You'd think that maybe you would have been ready for us. You had plenty of time to prepare.
How's that?
There you go.
All right, so think about across the top, you'll see April 2022 when we were fortunate enough for our community to invest in our $15 million of bonds. Goes all the way through July of 2024. So it is going to be a multi-year project. Majority of the work is going to be during the summer months, but it will occur throughout the school year when it's not interrupting our instructional or academic areas. On the left-hand side, we kind of started with just the project meetings and identifying bid packages one. They were pretty minor, a lot of door hardware, and all of that stuff has been ordered, dealing with timelines and delivery. And so those are things that can happen and get installed throughout either when we have breaks, winter breaks, spring breaks, and also weekends or after school hours. We are currently in the process of finalizing the bid package number 2. That is, in all honesty, kind of putting the next pearl on the necklace here is that by making that decision and identifying that the intermediate school will now become our middle school 6, 7, and 8, this will help facilitate and make some of the pairings of these bids that'll go out in January more, I think, robust. On January 5th, this is when we will have the meeting on site. It does say virtual, but they're moving it to be on site if any of the board members would want to participate. But that will be an update with regards to the cost estimates based on all of the bid packages that are going to be sent out. We'll continue to look at those as the bids are due at the end of February. We'll start to, they're in phases so that we have different buildings where bids are coming back for HVAC, the panels and things like that. What we have learned is that the electrical panels and HVAC are all going to take place in the summer of 2024 due to just the timelines of getting that equipment on site and in place. Also, they have to kind of align that with when they're replacing the roofs. We did have a specific presentation by an outside consultant that kind of went through the different roof variations, presented to Mike Hoyka, understanding what we currently have. We are going with what we think is not just the cheapest, but what is the most effective, meaning that we're going to go all the way down to the metal roof understructure, so that we have done some testing with regards to the insulation. some of the insulation underneath the built-up roofs is wet and deteriorating, which means it loses its R value. Also, the R value is below what is currently necessary or recommended for big institution buildings like ours. Obviously, with the gas prices going up, the more insulation you have, the more efficient the buildings will run. So that just kind of gives you an outline. We've talked and continue to give you updates with regards to how things are going. You had a picture earlier of the intermediate school looking at some of the work that'll be done in March. Will be some of the asbestos removal of what'll now be our future science rooms, so that can be tackled and repurposed in the summer of 2023 and ready for August of 2023 as a middle school. Any questions with regards to kind of how we're working with the River Valley and Market and Johnson, or some of the timelines?
Yeah, Pat, I'll open it up to you here. Any questions for Rick?
No, good. No questions. Good work. Let me know if you need anything from me.
Will do.
All right. Tanya,
No questions.
Vicky,
No questions.
Steve?
No question. Just like the presentation here. This makes it very easy to see what the heck's going on.
I agree. Thanks, Rick. I think we're good.
All right.
Forge ahead. All right, we'll move on. Speaking of forging ahead, moving on to item E, school board seat and election update.
Okay, let's see if I do this right. Do you see the board election page?
Not yet.
All right. Stop. Share. Think I got it now. School board elections. Is the website showing?
Yep.
Okay, so a couple things. This is the election information for 2023. We do have a belated birthday wish to Steve Sizemore, but also an official non-candidacy statement did come forward, so that we do have one seat that is open for April election, and Steve has put forward a non-candidacy statement, and we are looking for individuals to fill that spot. Individuals are able to submit no later than 5 o'clock on January 3rd. Just to remind people, due to both weather and also winter break, the district office will reopen on January 3rd, because we're closed on the 2nd, and we will have people there till 5 o'clock to accept any candidates that want to submit.
Right, Rick, just to recap too, when was the first day that folks could file for candidacy? How long has it been open for?
I think it runs, Maria, you might be able to be, I thought it was December 1, no sooner than December 1 and no later than January 3rd.
That is correct, December 1st. And we have been in the office. Also, that the district office is closed does not mean that people cannot mail their candidacy. If it's postmarked by January 3rd, it is eligible. So people don't have to go to the district office. They just have to send their paperwork and complete it and notarized by that date. So that the district's office is not open doesn't mean that they can't do it. I want to make that very clear. Okay.
All right, anybody have any comments here? Steve's filing for non-candidacy, 9 years on the board, right, Steve?
That's correct.
That's a heck of a run. 9 years is a long time to serve anything, and you know, we got months to go here, so I'm not gonna belabor this, but appreciate everything that you've done to help us.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, we got months to go. Don't thank me yet.
Yeah, right.
Also, I do not want to interrupt, but I want to let the board know that the campaign finance registration statement will be sent out to everyone on January 3rd. So you guys can fill it out and send it back to me. If you do it earlier than that, you will have to renew it on January 3rd because they have a new form coming up for the coming year. Okay,
All
so
right.
don't fill it
Thank
out
you.
until you get yours in the mail. Or
It's
in
a
the
good
email.
time to procrastinate.
All right, if there's nothing else here, we're gonna move on. And yes, we will move on to, again, recognition of visitors. I already did state this, so if there's any visitors online that would care to be recognized, just raise your hand. Your electronical hand, your digital hand, and we'll have Maria turn your mic on if I call, as I call on your name here. So is there anybody in the audience or online that would care to be recognized here? Okay, we're gonna move on. And I lost my agenda here. Hold on. I think that was okay. Yes. So board, I'm gonna read this and then we'll set a time to reconvene here. The board will consider a motion to convene into closed session under exemptions 1985 1C. This is going to be virtual, not in room 117 as stated on the agenda, but it'll be virtual. We have another virtual meeting link that we'll jump on. Under the statute 1985 1C, dismissal, consideration, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation date of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And this is the superintendent evaluation and review of the 21-22 school year. So if a board member would like to make a motion, I'd like to tie it to a time as well here.
Yeah, I'll move to convening closed session as noted above at 8:30.
So we'll get 5-minute break here quick and then back in the room.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed? That carries. All right, we're gonna jump off this one and take a quick break and we'll reconvene the open session. Thank you everyone for who joined, and a big thank you to Maria and Rick. I know you guys did a lot of work here to try to get this set up and working. And if there's others I'm missing, I know Andy, you probably had something to do with this too. But everyone, thank you for making this happen. I'm glad we were able to avoid the snowstorms, and I'll stop muttering there. So thanks everyone. Have a good
Andy,
holiday.
thank you.
Right.
Happy holidays.